That price of
That's our, here we go.
Hey, Lawrence. Yeah, Deborah's Drive. Would you like to go? It could just be me. I'm not, I was just gonna ask you the name of the slides. Thank you. Done.
Who's the
Come on.
lowercase slides dash 105 dash?
Keep track of status and issues. Got it.
Yes.
I just have to.
Am I up first or? No.
Okay, blue sheets are gonna start going around.
All right.
Are you doing this?
We're not doing that.
Yeah, if you're-
You can do Meet Echo. Okay, I'll do
Oh, that's easy.
slides. Where's the clicker? Sorry. Just. This works.
All right, welcome to the RATS remote attestation procedures working group session. The blue sheets are going around. Do you want to advance so we can show the note well?
Well, that's why I gave you the clicker.
Oh,
Click.
sorry. Thank you. Note the note well. He wasn't ready yet. He can take over. You can take over as soon as you're ready.
Fine.
Okay, here's our agenda. Is there anyone that would like to bash it? Okay, in addition to that, the blue sheets started going around, so please make sure to sign them.
Who are our note takers? Chris?
We have 2 note takers, and we have a scribe. So it's all taken care of. Thank you very much.
So for those who want to follow, the notes are being done in Etherpad.
Follow or help.
Yeah.
I fill in a name if a name is missed or something is always appreciated by minute takers. All right, so milestones. Oh, administrative. Oh, we just did that. Okay, milestones. Would you like to run through that?
Sure. All right, so we're beginning our work on the use case document. That's not going to be, we made a decision or at a virtual interim that we would not publish as an RFC, but it should be available for publicly for review. We did a call for an adoption on the e-draft, and that adoption was accepted. We have a call for adoption for the token bind draft, the interaction model draft, the Yang module draft, and the tutor draft. Okay, so we're working on making a call for those adoption call for those drafts. In July 2019, we did the call for adoption for the architecture draft that actually was delayed. So we anticipate making a call for that draft in this meeting or the next meeting tomorrow.
So just a comment, we're going to be making a date change for these ones that were supposed to happen in March. And then the AD will accept when the dates match.
So we'll be updating the milestones accordingly. So if we can stay on track, we're going to ask the question tomorrow after the updates for both the architecture and the Yang module, whether there's been enough viewers to allow us to put the question of whether it's ready to put the call for adoption. So we'll be updating the milestones.
Thank you.
Yep. Sorry.
Okay, so do we need to talk about the March 2020 stuff?
No.
Yeah, I think we're done there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We think we're still on track.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
Famous last words.
Famous last words.
We think
All
we're
right.
on track.
We think we're on track.
Okay. So, next slide.
You have the clicker.
I have the
Don't worry, I
clicker.
did the same thing.
Okay. Okay, so that's today. I think we
Oh,
did.
you're going backwards.
We're going backwards. Okay.
That's
So,
backwards.
No, it's fine. We reversed those. So click next.
okay, this is our agenda.
Yep.
All right, so that was so the next up is 10 minutes for, 20 minutes for use cases. So Michael Richardson.
Do you have to swap out the slides? Do you have his up?
Oh.
Do you have his in here?
That's me.
There's too many of us up here.
Need some kind of chair task allocation.
Well, this is the magic. You have to click 3 times to make sure it's in full screen
And you
mode.
need to say no place like no.
Exactly.
Oh, I forgot my
Is it work?
Ruby registered first. Yeah, me too.
Clicker, you want me to try it? Yes. There we go. It works, and that has to be on. There we go. Now it works. You should turn it off at the end of the session so that people at home don't hear what you say to the chairs quietly. Hi, I'm Michael Richardson. We'll be talking about the use case document today, or rather you will be talking about the use case document today, I really hope. It says 03, excuse me, and that's correct. I anticipated posting a new one yesterday, but it's a little more aspirational than active. What are we doing today? How we got here? Where are we going? Can I raise a show of hands of those who were at the virtual interim? So I would say 20% of the room. Does that look about right? So for a lot of you, this will be new, and I think that's okay. How we got? Where are we going? Where are we? Where is it going? I would like to spend the bulk of the time in the discussion. We have only one microphone. That's okay, I guess. And then after discussion, I'd like to share what my vision is, how it's going to mutate into, what it will look like. Okay, if we get there. So there's an initial 0001, 03 post just for the virtual interim. I imagine posting in 04 yesterday. Actually, there wasn't enough material that I really felt it was worth the integer. And it's just tired. Okay. So as we agreed, the intention is this is not published as an RFC, partly because the IESG doesn't really feel that we should publish requirements and use case documents on their own. If this working group really thinks the content is valuable, then I would urge you to put it in as an appendix to some other document that's going to get published anyway. I'm not looking for more author credits, so I don't care. The goal is to focus us on what's important and what's not. Well, let me continue on. So the document so far. There are 13 use cases listed. I hope they're in better order than they were at the last meeting. There's approximately 4 categories. Device capabilities or firmware state claims. Cryptographic key claims, so that distinguishes IMA, the device is a foo, I'm running firmware, blah, blah, blah. And the cryptographic key things are more like, this key has been stored in a particular type of container or TPM or something, and that's why you can trust it or not. Geographic is in location, where are things, Connectivity, which is a little bit like geographic in a more abstract sense, I'm connected to something or whatever. It includes a survey of identified technology users, so this list could increase. Trusted computing group has said they wanted to use this. FIDO says they wanted to use this. And Android Key Store has been expressed as being a thing, and I know we have people from there, though I can't quite figure out yet how that's going to work. Carl Wallace contributed 3 big examples of existing attestation claims down to the ASN1D code and this kind of stuff. I found it fascinating. I have as many questions as answers about what I saw in there. And I don't know whether or not it's useful in this for us to do this kind of thing at this level. It might be that at a smaller level of abstraction, it's useful to see what people have done, or maybe we just need more text and less hex dump to really say something interesting. Yes, Roman.
Roman Zanillo as an individual. So you mentioned that those entities have expressed interest to use this. Did you mean the protocol that ultimately the working group will develop, or did you mean that they actually want the use case document? Because I know we kind of talked about.
No, I don't think they care. I don't know if they care about the use case document, although I think I heard from people from all of those places about use cases. So that's a good point. While our charter says, I was actually rather surprised to say that, realize the charter does include a protocol in the end, because I thought we were trying to not have a protocol, but just have a claims format. Because most of these people do have protocols, maybe not Android Key Store, but the other two certainly have protocols that are pre-existing, and they just want to have standardized ways of expressing claims.
Right, so with the AD hat back on it, the charter says that we probably won't, it says we will not publish the use case, but if one of those entities were to express that this would be important to us, that would probably change the context.
Yeah, so no objection to doing it. What I'm trying to say is that don't think of this, oh my goodness, how are we going to publish this? Think of it as, what is this how does this document help us focus our thinking, not how does it work?
Yeah, so, sorry if I can interject. So, Roman, we discussed this to some length at the virtual interim, and we decided to table the publication, that it was more important to get the use cases to help drive the motivation for the solution.
I think in terms of the tempo, that's phenomenal. That's a good idea.
Okay.
Frank Xiang, thank you for this use case draft. It's already covered a lot of organizations, technology, and the industry. I just want to add one point that maybe 1 year ago, we have a multi-attestation use case draft about the NFV technology, network modularization technology.
Oh yes,
So,
right.
So I'm wondering whether we can consider it can also be a part of this document. So it's a working group. Maybe can consider it.
So it's a network virtualization. Obviously, I haven't read the document right in the instant. I think the answer is that we need to post the relevant pieces to the mailing list and abstract what is the use case that's occurring. And a lot of people saying, and I want to attest over the network as to a particular aspect of the device, and say, so that's a device attestation use case. And so then the question is there something unique about the particular environment there? So in some cases, people said, oh yes, every party is a relaying party because it's peer-to-peer. And then there's some other variations that people have said. So I think certainly welcome, Frank, it would be useful. I am interested in feedback as to the utility of the examples. I think that maybe less detail about the examples would be, it was probably warranted. I kind of just, Carl, and he's not here this week, sent me a pull request. So it was really easy to just suck it all in without thinking. And I went, wow, there's a lot of really interesting stuff here. I don't really think that all of it belongs, but I actually think that it's kind of useful for people to see prior art and what happened and what kind of things were there. But I think we need more explanation of some things, or maybe just references to where these things are defined. So I think that would be very welcome.
Yeah.
Do you have something else? Okay, yeah.
I still about this point, because I think that use case is mainly from the ETSI. They have some documentation about it. They need this kind of documentation for the virtualized network. And indeed, there are some specific technology or technology requirement for those use cases. So I think from whether from the requirement and from the technology perspective, so maybe that use cases we should add to our,
Okay.
yeah.
So please.
We can discuss more.
So my intention is to do a little bit and then have a whole slide for open mic. So yes, in general, I would like people to express the use case and say, I think I have a use case, as you've just said, and then said, okay, that's great. Please, let's figure out how it fits into the rest of the thing. Where is it going? So first point is we want to add new use cases. There's been one posted to the mailing list. I think it was Monday or Sunday by Dr. Ian Oliver. Maybe you're here. I don't know. About three new terms, at least, was supply chain, dynamic systems, and data. There was some discussion about whether some of this belonged or not, and I think that's all appropriate. My goal is to accept the text, okay? Make sure to take clarifying questions about the text. Do you mean it refers to when the oranges are in the container or when the oranges are in the store? Okay, whatever, if it's about oranges. And clarify that so that we have some agreement as to what is the case that's being described. And then I want to argue about, is this different from something else? So do you see the two-step process here? You remember we had that, I don't know, there was some meeting where people asked for clarification questions only, and clearly people weren't clear on what clarifications were, right? So I really do want that step on the mailing list to do that, because before you should start disagreeing with it, you probably have made some assumptions about what's going on that may be or may not be true. And so the idea is we really like to get a unified view of it. So that's the blue things. Jessica Fitzgerald McKay, who I saw in the back somewhere there, has suggested a different set of dimensions. And I tried hard to understand at 10 o'clock on Monday night what that really meant. And I failed to understand the list. So I did not challenge you yet, but on it. But I hope maybe I got 3 dimensions out of what you wrote. I think that's a useful comment. And I think that we should categorize the use cases on a number of different ways. But ultimately, this is not about making an ontology of use cases, okay? And if you know about the platypus, who I believe is a mammal that has a beak and lays eggs, and therefore, or is warm-blooded, but, you know, lays eggs, the question is, what category? Confused biologists for centuries, right, as to what causing. And that's not our goal. Our goal is not to figure out whether this use case belongs in category A or category B, but to understand that use case and whether we have to solve it, okay? So the platypus exists. If it needs an ecosystem to live in, we need to provide it, and we don't need to worry about which part of the zoo we put it in, okay? If it gets its own place, great, okay? And open mic, come tell me the things that you failed to find. How many people have read the document since I know Dave has, of course, yeah. It was done, and just leave your hand up, okay? So not that many. So that's not so good, because I'm hoping you'll come and argue and discuss with whether the 13 items we have are useful or not. And we can see what was going on, and do you have new ones? So Frank has given us one new one. Does someone else have things that they don't feel that have been represented by them? Yes, sir. How much time do I have?
You have till 25.
You have 15 more minutes.
Oh, wow, okay, that's
Hi
lots.
there, Eric Voigt. Just a question is, there are some other documents that are coming in, for example, the draft FDORCA, which is going to be talked about tomorrow, hits on a lot of things which looks to be network attestation, yet a number of the network-based attestations are not in the use case document. So the question of, are you going to collapse things from other people's documents that are not necessarily explicitly brought out?
Yes, and I can only do that if I can look through the list of extra documents, but of course they showed up on Friday, right? So I can't have that happen. So we are having a side meeting tomorrow morning at 8:30 in the Corral Room. And the goal is to put the use case document on the screen. Anyone have a VGA cable? Because I need one. And to actually stuff them in at that point so that we can actually argue over the text right there. That's the goal of the side meeting, is to actually bring that forward. So if all we do is go through the documents, as you just mentioned, and pull the right pieces out, or if you're the expert on that document, you can say you want paragraphs 6 through 9 of this thing, we'll condense it down to one paragraph. That would be a really useful thing to get together to do. Okay, so that's what the goal is, to make that and rev the document and, go on. Okay. All right. Well, so what I've envisioned for the use case document is a series of pieces like this that doesn't look like this right now. So there'll be a series of things. What's the name of the use case? Who is going to use it? Okay. What is the goal of this? If there's a list of 12 protocols or standards or something that that will use this or make use of this thing, great. Who is attesting? Okay, what is the device or the TPM or the root of trust or something like this that is making the statement? Who is the relying party? Who's going to verify the statement or cares about what it says? And the use case, what is the description? Okay. And then if you look at the EAT document, for instance, there's a whole long list of claims that it offers, right? A palette of things that you may say about it. And so the intention is in the use case, what are the claims that you're going to be making use of? And so in order for this to be useful, this is just two things. First of all, it motivates why that claim exists in the EAT document. Okay, and that's the whole point, the use cases. And secondly, it could say something, I need to attest to the shape of the microphone, and we do not have a claim that attests to that. So that would mean that there's a gap, right? And so we only have 13 use cases, so imagine we have 20 at the end of the day, and then we argue about them and we end up with 17, okay? That's not that many to go through and say things. And then the question is, well, do we have things in the EAT document that aren't needed or are missing? And I think that's the whole purpose of a use case document, is to explain to us why we're doing certain things. That makes sense?
Hi, Robin Wilson. Makes sense as a framework. I just wanted to check whether you're open to the idea that a testing party and relying party for a single use case might be multiples.
There are multiple testing parties and there are multiple relying parties. Absolutely. So you would like it to have pluralization for that thing. Yeah. I don't know why I was thinking about 12 Monkeys. It's an interesting movie, but there you go. If you know it, you know it. If not, it's okay. There you go. So that's that's it. So certainly that's the case. There's a use case for computational systems that's motivated by, blockchain systems, where apparently they would like to have some kind of attestation that the hardware they're running is real hardware and is no powerful than a certain thing and is not virtualized and other stuff like that. But one of the key points is that all of the members are attesting and all the members are relying, because it's a peer-to-peer. So that's a lot different than other things, even though it's really about the thing. And actually, I don't know, maybe the attesting party is actually a third party. That may actually really be the case. Okay. All right, well, that's all I got.
Can you just re-announce your meeting?
Yes, meeting is tomorrow morning, Thursday morning, 8:30,
In the
caller room, upstairs that way, go past the ping room, which the IESG is in appropriately.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so up next is Lawrence for the EAT draft.
Okay. 1, 2. I don't know.
All right, hello. This is my first time as a document editor here in IETF.
Clicker.
So hopefully I understand the procedures. So here's general comments on the 01 draft that was published about a month ago. This was the first major revision to it since EAT was draft about a year ago. One of the major shifts in this version was that an EAT is considered to be either a CWT or a JWT. It can be either. And the whole document orients around that. So that was my understanding was we had consensus about it, and I know we had consensus about it for a CWT, and I've extended that to JWT. So doing that, now the EAT document inherits a lot from those documents. And I think this is a good thing. Simplifies things, less text to write. There may be some leftover stuff in the draft from before when it wasn't, but we can clean that up. Anyway, so inheriting, it inherits things like claim optionality, it inherits the verification process, and it inherits the IANA process. And I think these are things we've had some discussions about. But if you really look at where this is, I think where it's landing, and I'm happy about this. Another thing that this document does, this version does, is defines the claims in some text plus CDDL. And then the CDDL is used to basically mechanically or procedurally derive the JSON or the CBOR for the actual serialization. So tomorrow we have some discussion about data model versus information model and how all that fits together. So I'm not going to go into that today. I'm just saying that this is how the 01 draft is set up. I think it's nice to be able to have that based on the CDDL and sort of describe each claim without going into any details of the JSON or CBOR representation or some other representation. That's kind of becomes the core of the definition of the claim, is that text plus CDDL. So the CDDL is being used normatively here. I'm not sure that that's been done before. I mean, everything I've seen doesn't use it normatively. Yeah, okay. So this, I think this document is still in somewhat early stages. Right now, there's about a dozen issues in GitHub. I have slides for about half a dozen of those for some discussion today. I'm expecting more issues in GitHub, more discussion there. My vision of this document, in terms of how many claims do we have in this document? I mean, there's a set here, but I'm actually expecting there to be more claims. And in Prague, I had some lists of them and all that. So, and it was nice to see how that lines up with the use cases and that's really being considered in the use cases. So, I'm interested in seeing more claims being proposed and added to this document. Also, interested in it not being like every claim ever and the document taking 5 years, because we're going to try to do every claim ever. Looking for a sort of a highly coherent, generally useful, generally applicable set of claims. That was my vision for what this document would contain. Go ahead, Mike.
Mike Jones. I think we're already aligned on this, but I'm at Microsoft. I'll state for the record that when we developed the claims in the JOT and the COT specs, we made it explicitly use case driven. We wanted to look for claims that we believed there were existing use cases that would use them immediately. And if so, we put them in. And otherwise, we provided registries where people could add them later. And I think that's worked out well.
Okay.
This is a clarifying question. So what you're saying is we're doing it right?
I think so.
Okay, thank you.
Good comment for Mike. Okay.
Sorry.
So I'm encouraging filing issues in GitHub and creating pull requests. I think that's kind of standard procedure here. Okay, so the remainder of my slides are about specific issues. Some of them I think are close to resolution. Some might need some discussion. So I'm going to just jump into those. So the first issue here was about claims optionality. So this has got a laser here, I think. Not a very good one, but so this was the current text. Then I went and read the text in CWT and JWT. Oops, pushed the wrong button there. And said, oh, that text looks really good. So let's just use that. So it says that certain profiles, in certain situations, there may be requirements that some claims are optional and some claims are mandatory and all that. But in absence of any of those kinds of things, claims that are not understood must be ignored. So if everybody's good with that, then all I got to do is really delete some of the existing text and we're happy. Any discussion on that? Like, tell me we're doing it right?
The thing again, and maybe Mike will, I don't know, this is coming. No, I'm looking at the, should profiles be allowed to override this question? Are we raising this question in the room here right now? Is this the next thing or?
I believe this text here says that profiles can override.
Thanks, yes.
In absence of such requirements, yeah, so.
Quoting Hank's language, you're doing it right.
Michael Richardson, the mic. Actually, I believe that the text should say profiles must override this, because I think the whole point of the profile is to say which ones they actually want to use.
Okay.
Right? So if they don't do that, then they're not a profile.
Okay.
They're not useful as a profile, right? So I think that's actually the thing. So your document should say them all, they are all optional, of course, right? But someone who writes a whatever is going to, a profile needs to say what they're using. And if they don't say it, then they've wasted their time. And so I'm just saying that the first bullet probably, if you like, could be much stronger.
Yeah, so I'm just.
Allowed, but must.
So what I'm just saying is delete all this text and let the inheritance of this text govern. Okay, good. Okay, now for something kind of different. So UEIDs are an identifier, kind of like a serial number, but not really a serial number. They identify individual instances of something. If you have 1 million phones, then there's 1 million different UEIDs. So a UEID is something made up, a new concept or new ID, a new name for something. UEIDs did not exist prior to the e-draft. There are two types of UEIDs. One is based on kind of something very, well, can be based on I don't remember, the IEEE identifier, which is often a MAC address. So it can be based on that. So that seems all pretty straightforward. But there were a number of comments and questions about UEIDs as random numbers. So the idea is you can have a UEID that it's a random number, at least 128 bits. It should be cryptographic quality. And if you generate your UEIDs that way, there will be enough collision resistance that it will work just fine. So there were the two issues were raised. One was, is 128 bits enough? And then the other is a statement about cryptographic quality enough. I guess the third issue here also from Tom F. was, are they good? Another version of are they good enough? So I've done some math here on the 128 bits. Hopefully my math is right, but it seemed like enough bits. And then cryptographic quality, saying it must be a cryptographic quality number. That's the text for it right there. All right.
Stuart Cheshire from Apple. I'm not sure whether 128 bits is or is not enough, but your reasoning there, I think, is flawed. Using the assumptions you've got there, the probability of my phone conflicting is 1 in 300 trillion. You do that a trillion times, the probability of 2 devices conflicting is guaranteed. And if you've not heard of the birthday problem, look it up on Wikipedia. It will explain the correct way to do this analysis.
Okay.
Bob Moskowitz, AG Consulting. I can give you the formula and a spreadsheet, which given your maximum population size and your expected population size, what is the probability of collision? This is a known thing, and I put in it's in a number of my graphs. You can actually find a number of my graphs, and I have it in a very easy to use spreadsheet. And I'll get it to you so you can run it through very easily and come out with what is the actual problem. Given the the maximum population size to the whatever, to the 1 in 28, and this many devices, what's my collision probability?
All right, so I'm clearly not doing it right.
Hi, Stephen Bernhardt. So is this UEID thing any different from just a UUID? I mean, that's like an established concept.
Yeah, I found it, I looked at the UUID and I explicitly did not like the UUIDs. It seemed like the constructs were really complicated, or overly complicated, and they predated the idea of doing it with just a cryptographic quality random number. Sometimes UUIDs are ephemeral, sometimes they're not. So I found it easier to go this way.
So I think you'll find that the established math and ecosystems around UUIDs will give you exactly what you're looking for with less work, with less definition in your document, and will do everything you need to do. UUIDs are well studied and widely deployed pretty much everywhere. So it's something we're thinking about.
I don't know, I didn't find it so, but no.
Well,
Okay.
so this is also a working group document now,
Yeah.
so we can decide as a working group what the correct decision is.
Dave Walterbright. I think specifically folks are referencing type 4 UUIDs, which are, use some system information and timestamps as a source of, as a seed for generating the random number.
Okay, I'm going to cut the mic at Bob because we should probably move on.
Okay.
But there is, I just want to mention, since Stephen was discussing it, so RFC 4122 talks about, in the IETF, how to generate them.
Okay.
So,
Okay, I'm also obviously file comments in GitHub on this too.
Come to the mic, please.
If you look in my hierarchical hit draft, Appendix A, you'll see the formula right there.
Okay.
RFC 4122.
that's what I said.
Yeah, so part of the nature also on comment 12 is to not just allow for proper generation of, for instance, a UUID in the context of random number generator, but to also allow for random number generators plus seeds to be used in a deterministic manner. We have use cases where, for instance, we would like to see an attestation generated in a certain way with a certain identifier upon power up of the device, just to ensure that it's authentic and the relying party relies on that same number being generated the same way every single time. So yes, it's great that we talk about how to minimize clashes between different generations of UUIDs, but we also need to have a way to allow manufacturers to generate a UUID using the same mechanisms in a deterministic manner, like over and over again from a known event. And I'd be happy to document that use case in the context of various documents.
Put it in GitHub.
Yeah. It's already in GitHub. I filed that issue, by the way.
Well, use case.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, so some characteristics of signing keys. There's some text in the document that says the EAT is always signed by the attestation key material provisioned by the manufacturer. So some suggest removing this to allow for ephemeral keys. Some suggest strengthening key protection requirements around the signing keys. As far as I can see, CWT and GWT do not make any comments about signing keys. I mean, I guess COSE does say generally you should protect your signing keys. My sense of this is that most of the characteristics of signing keys belong in profile documents, and that we want to be pretty similar to the way GWT and CWT work in the EAT draft. So that probably means removing this text and generally going through the document and making sure that we're lined up around that. Comments, please.
Hi, this is Hank. Might not be a big surprise, but some suggest strengthening key protection requirements seems of interest to me because we are about attestation trustworthiness a little bit.
Yeah.
So if it's just my rich system key material from a home directory, that's something else entirely. If it's a shielded secret that has some restriction on it to access it, that you have to, for example, show integrities or something.
So I'm just saying, in the E draft, we are not going to talk about it. I'm not saying other drafts can say lots of stuff. Yeah.
From my point of view, because it's an attestation token, it's highly important to convey this information, or at least a way to get this information. Because if the EAT itself tells you I was signed by a super secure key, that doesn't enrich the information at all. It can just be lie. So maybe there has to be a claim that shows there's a reference to some I don't know, TA that confirms this. If you have signed this in the.
What I don't know is it doesn't seem like anything needs to go in the 8 draft for this. Other documents, yes, but not the 8 draft. That's the.
So the drafts that would use EAT would say, we need this claim additionally to express that, and then we use EAT.
Well, I mean, putting a claim about the strength of the key material in something that's signed by that key material is self-signed and therefore not that meaningful. So I don't see why it would go in the 8 draft.
Okay.
So
yeah,
that's.
I'm so neutral on this. I just want to say that because we're talking about trustworthiness, it seems to be an important property. Maybe not in this claim itself, but maybe profiles would have to deal with that.
Yeah, okay, that's right. That sounds good.
Gary Mundy, Qualcomm. Sorry, I didn't identify myself last week. I'm actually of the opinion that the sentence is okay, and I actually filed issue on ephemeral keys based on the review from ARM. But that wasn't my personal feeling. Is that ephemeral keys should not be used for signing unless they themselves are attested. And now you get into a loop of, okay, how do you trust the key material? Now you have to attest to that, and so on and so forth. Each, I think, the top level EAT token should have some level of assurances associated with this key material, and that's done by having a key material provision record.
But I mean, the question to me still is what goes in the 8 draft versus what goes elsewhere, and I'm still kind of looking for the consensus there. And it seems to me still that the key material, the strength of the key material should not be in the 8 draft, just like it's not in the CWT draft or the JWT or RFCs.
So this is Dave Taylor. So I disagree with the previous speaker. I'm sorry, Mr. Nate. And I agree with the proposal to move it to profile documents. I submitted a number of different use cases or references to use cases that Michael put into the use cases document. And a number of those would require your proposal because they do not rely on stuff provision by the manufacturer. What you have to have is you have to have a key material that is trusted by the receiver of the EAT. Okay? And there's different roles that could be the receiver of the EAT depending on your use case. And in some of those, the receiver of the EAT can trust something other than the manufacturer for doing its verification against reference values or whatever the policy is of receiving the EAT. And so, yes, I agree with your perhaps this belongs in profile documents. Please do that. I think that makes EATs much more generally applicable to the various use cases that are in the use cases document. Thank you.
Adam Whitaker, Critical Technologies. I'm agreeing with what you're saying here. It should be not in the EAT draft to make it more general, and as you had just previously said. However, I feel almost like, and this happens all the time, we're punting the issue into another draft, and this is turning into a turtles all the way down situation, but it always will. So I don't know if that's something we want to bring up, but we're always going to run into it again and again.
Just to get beyond this, would it be okay if we actually mention this in security considerations and do what seems to be the consensus here and move this into profiles so we can say that so we can make comments about trust level in the key material that's not the token without making it a normative requirement?
You're looking at me like you're asking me to answer the question. So I'll answer the question from my opinion. To me, the issue is trying to constrain the EAT document to signature by the manufacturer. Okay, there are many different use cases of EATs, like whether the EAT goes to the verifier or whether the EAT is part of the attestation result or whatever, and out of different use cases, different ways to compose it, right? If you say it's key material that is trusted by the receiver, that's a perfect thing to talk about in security considerations, and manufacturer is one common example. That's a great example, right? But there are cases where there are other examples that still use key material trusted by the receiver, where it doesn't change the manufacturer per se, it changes some other entity that's trusted by the receiver.
Okay, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with
Okay. All right, I'll take a shot at that in the security considerations. Okay, verification process. I think there's two uses of the term verification and verify that are in RATS. There's in the CWT, JWT case, and that's mostly, and there's very explicit text in both CWT and JWT that's primarily around verifying the signatures on the COSE and HOSE. Then there's the end-to-end RATS verification, mostly so. I think EAT just inherits from JWT and CWT, so I don't think there's any need for any of that text in the EAT document. I thought about it, that text looks pretty good, so I actually think we're covered on the verification process in terms of that. But for the larger end-to-end, that, you know, it's another, that's where now we're talking about the turtles again, but.
This is Hank again. So with the RATS end-to-end verification, I'm not really sure what you mean by that. Do you mean the attestation provenance?
You know, you have the verifier and all the things.
Okay,
things.
The problem is addressed because the verifier appraises the evidence. You just verification was so overloaded that evidence is appraised. And
Yeah, but you have a verifier as a role, so that's potential. That's why it's verify star, verif star.
Yeah, okay, so I filed this issue. It's not, I don't believe the slide is it's not a perfect reflection of why I did that. I think it's more along the lines of reflecting verification guidance that would be, that would improve the readability of the document, would be kind of necessary for an independent reader, putting that in all into one section so they can go straight to it. I agree that we inherit pretty much all our verification procedures from HOSE and COSE. I think I think it's not any harm to state that, even though some people may feel it's obvious. I do feel that there are some things that are a little subtle in how claims are interpreted by verifiers that I believe will be questioned in broader review as we try to take this into a standard, and I would like to get ahead of it. I don't think it's we could put that under the individual, those discussions under the individual claims, but once again, I believe that affects the readability of the document. And so that was my motivation. I'd like a chance to just create the PR and let people review it before closing out this.
So CWT and JWT don't say anything about appraising, checking, or validating the value of the claims themselves. They just discuss the signature check and the overall, and that was, and that's, and to me, that's where each should land, and the validation of the claims is the larger end, another hurdle.
Yeah, I think we did highlight in that in the discussion on there that there are some things related to claim interpretation based on the fact that EAT inherits from CWT that should be addressed.
Okay.
Don't bring it up.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think that does belong in a discussion of the claim, but they belong in the verification section. Like I said, I mean, you can look at the PR, you don't like it, then you don't.
Okay. Tony?
Tony Hadlin. I noticed you didn't have the notion of a presentation or a presenter, right, of the claim itself. So there is the issuer of the claim, and then there may be a presenter of the claim, which may not be the same thing. So, the device or whatever may actually have a claim, right, and a signature on it, but they may also, something else may actually wrap those up into another, since you have nested JWTs in there or proposed nested in there, then you can have a presenter of this claim, which is not the same thing as the issuer of the claim.
Okay.
So have you thought about that situation?
Mike Jones, Microsoft. I was going to give an example. I inhabit your office. I was going to give an example of that very distinction in a recent JOT RFC, which is the security event token specification makes a distinction between issuer and presenter for exactly the reasons that Tony talks about. And at least as we're describing things, that linguistic distinction, which is a semantic distinction, is worth maintaining. Can somebody for the notes look up? Yes.
And
Can somebody for the notes look up security event token and put the RFC number in the notes?
And would that relevant text go in the EAT draft, or would it go in some other document?
No, I bet, well, since I don't, Tony again, since I don't think we're picking up the event draft here, I would say that the same concept needs to be incorporated
somewhere
into this particular document, since we're not picking up all the ID event stuff that goes on in that particular draft.
All right, I'll look at it. I think that's, okay, the definition of, are we doing on time and we're okay? Okay. Okay.
Have 5 minutes.
Okay. Definition of entity.
For purposes of the notes, that's RFC 8417.
Okay.
And it was noted.
Etherpad is great.
All right, so I was, so the definition of entities, there's an issue, some comments about that. I chose to make the definition sort of, it's intended to be open and somewhat ambiguous to not artificially limit use. So some examples, it could be a completed device like a phone, an appliance, or even a car. A subcomponent could be an entity as well, a secure element, or a TEE, or the engine controller, or the entertainment subsystem, or even an Android app or a Windows app. Those could be entities that could generate EAT tokens. So trying to be pretty broad and open, not trying to lock anything down, particularly in the EAT draft. Now, profiles, you can go really tight and detailed, and only if it was done, EAL6, common criteria, AVL, whatever, you could do that. But in the EAT draft, no minimum security requirement. So, I've kind of described the entity in some words. I'm not that happy with the current text. Basically, I'm seeking suggestions and advice, find my way to do a little better job of describing that. One other comment I do have about that is I did look around a little bit to see who else uses the term entity. X1252 defines it as something very broad. The EAT draft is using it a little bit more narrow, but it is sort of within the scope of what X1252 defines it. So, comments, please.
Yep, Robin Wilton. Just to mention, there's a guy in Australia called Roger Clarke, CLARKE, who defines entity as part of a taxonomy of identity, anonymity, and so on. Not to say that should change the definition that you have here, which I think is compatible, but it's interesting to look at how in his taxonomy it fits in with a whole lot of other things that you might well find.
Okay, yeah, I didn't get the reference, but it'll probably...
Dave Taylor, you're doing it right. If you're looking for other references within the IETF, RFC 4133, not to be confused with 4122 that we talked about before. 33 is the entity MIB, which is how you manage an entity as a generic concept that I think kind of matches this. I don't know if there's any language in it that you can steal, but I think that the definition there is compatible with yours. And so it's a potential reference you might want to look at to see if you can steal anything.
Okay.
Tony Nadlin, since you mentioned the X, you should also look at 29115, ISO 29115, which is slightly different definition of entity. Even though they're mirror documents, there's a little bit of twist on those two.
Okay. All right, that's all I got.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Just a question, could I see a show of hands? Oh, one more.
one more thing I wanted to draw a bow on because it's an outstanding issue on this related to claim registration. I don't think we need to put, based on the discussion on the mailing list, I don't think we need to put any additional guidance in this document on the use of COD or JOT registries when registering these claims. Or registering these claims or any ensuing profiles. I just wanted to make sure that was the case so we can close out any related issues in the on the GitHub. On that. Okay, I've got that. I've got the COD author agreeing on this.
If not, you'll hear it through the GitHub.
Okay, I'm gonna kind of assume that going forward, but you know where to complain. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Show of hands of who's read the EAT draft. Okay. Would like to see more hands. Yeah.
Well, more importantly, when you see issues, please, we're tracking them through the issues in the GitHub. So thanks.
So 5 minutes.
Yeah. I'll get there. Okay. So we wanted to cover the milestones since we're going to be updating them. So on tomorrow, we're going to be talking about, or we have presentations for updates on a couple of the drafts, but there are still a few that aren't on the docket. So I wanted to pulse because there was some discussion that perhaps on the token bind, that we wouldn't move forward. But I wanted to confirm that with the group. Does anybody object if we just drop it from our work items?
Just not doing that.
We're just not doing it.
I don't have to read it then.
Okay, so if you have objections, let me know, but I don't think it's something, since we haven't adopted it, it's not anything that we need to take to the list. The second one is TUDA, so did Hank read?
Yes, Hank.
Okay, so you're not presenting on TUDA, but I'm presuming that you still want to move that forward.
Yes, this is Hank.
Okay.
We have internal development processes that are not finished, so we will.
That's fine.
And the answer is yes.
Thank you. You're learning. Yes or no, you're learning. Okay, so with that, tomorrow we have a full agenda, so I encourage everybody to review the new updated drafts that we're going to be discussing tomorrow. Tomorrow we are going to allow some time to discuss where and how we want to move forward vis-a-vis information model. Okay, with that, thank you, everyone. See you back tomorrow. That was good, and I'm sorry I didn't mean to. Sorry, but I figured we should get the experience. I just threw him saying, yeah. No, that's totally, but I just said, hey, Mary, would you like to present so that he gets the experience? Yeah. No, and you did the absolute right thing, but I just want to go back because I didn't quite prepare him. I just handed it off without prepping him. Yeah.